From when I last spoke to y'all, I now have a baby. She came 2 weeks before the expected due date, and there were a lot of unexpected twists and turns when it came down to the final days. I want to share my experience because I found that in the 3rd trimester, I was watching a lot of different delivery stories just to like mentally prepare myself for all the things that may or may not happen. And what I've really learned through not only my delivery experience, but the experience of a lot of my other friends is that expect the unexpected, and things will usually go in a lot of different directions that you don't expect. Going into pregnancy, my expectation was that I would probably go full term, even beyond full term. I know a lot of first-time moms go beyond full term, and I was expecting a pretty straightforward vaginal birth. I would get the epidural if I felt like getting it. I mean, I don't know what birthing pain feels like, so I wouldn't be able to know until getting there. I wrapped my mind around perhaps maybe having to get an emergency C-section if something happens, but in my mind, the chances of having vaginal birth were much higher. I didn't really have any health issues or anything like that. So that's what I was kind of mentally prepared for. I didn't really have a birth plan. I was like, you know what, it's all gonna go any other way anyways, so it is what it is. Things changed when I hit the 35-week mark. So my OB had ordered us a growth scan for 35 weeks. She didn't really have any concerns because when she was feeling the baby, everything felt right. It felt like the baby was in the right position. There was a large lump at the bottom of my stomach, one at the top, and then the kicks were in the right place. I get to the 35-week growth scan and we find out that the baby is in a frank breech position. So she is not an ideal position to be delivered vaginally in a safe way. And because I had been feeling kicks in the same spot from the very beginning, it was very unlikely that she was going to flip on her own. So my OB then offered to book us an ECV, which basically means from the external side, they manually try to maneuver your baby into the right position. I found this out on a Friday, and then she went ahead and booked me for the procedure the following Friday. So it gave me a little bit of time to decide whether I want to go through with it or not. I talked to the doctor about it. I did a lot of research. I definitely understood there were some risks with it. I was feeling really nervous about it all. And Ty and I were going back and forth on the decision on whether we should even try an ECV or not, or just leave things be. If she happens to turn, she turns. If she doesn't happen to turn, then the doctor said she would go ahead and schedule a C-section for 39 weeks. This whole thing took me by surprise. I did not expect it at all, and having to make that decision within 1 week was really scary to me. We decided to go forth with the ECV appointment. They do an ultrasound at that point anyways to check before they try the procedure. And Ty and I's decision was to go there, do the ultrasound, hear what the doctors have to say, and then make a decision at that point. But I was feeling really anxious about making that decision on the spot. But at the same time, I just needed more information on the baby's position, how feasible, my amniotic fluids, all that kind of good stuff. So the ECV date comes around. It's on a Friday. At that point, I'm like almost at the end of 37 weeks. We do the ultrasound as per usual before they try the procedure. And then the doctor comes in and lets us know some more unexpected news. So it turns out at that point, my baby was at the 6.5th percentile. Anything below a 10th percentile is considered of like concern, I guess, in that she's measuring extremely small. So not only is she measuring extremely small for her gestational age, she also had not grown in 2 weeks since my last ultrasound. At my last 35-week ultrasound, she was in the 20th percentile, which is small, but still fine. Expected for someone like me who's also, you know, a relatively small person. So it actually could have been that she hadn't grown for longer than 2 weeks, but the last ultrasound I had was at 20 weeks, so it was really hard to tell. But she hadn't grown in at least 2 weeks. So the decision for the ECV procedure was very simple. It was not up to us because they do not advise doing it for babies under the 10th percentile. It's extremely risky. The baby's too small and there's a high risk that it would go into some sort of distressing situation. So the doctor told me they would not attempt it. So I had told that doctor, which is not my OB, that my OB said that she would likely just schedule a C-section for 39 weeks if the ECV procedure doesn't go through or if the baby doesn't flip on its own. That doctor at that hospital suggested that we may have to actually deliver her earlier than that because she hasn't been growing. And I really didn't think anything of it because she wasn't my OB. She hadn't been following my journey. So I was like, okay, cool. She sent me off actually to my delivery hospital to monitor the baby further. So then that same day I went to the other hospital. I did not expect to be spending my entire afternoon at hospitals, but we went to my delivering hospital and I actually ran into my OB at that hospital. she was like, oh, why are you guys here? And we had let her know what had happened earlier that day. And when she heard that, she was like, okay, let's get this baby out ASAP. So right then and there, we were like at reception. She talks to the receptionist and asked, hey, when's my next opening for next week? And the receptionist said, Monday. And I overheard this, being that it was a Friday, and I was like, excuse me? You're telling me that it's a Friday today, and in 3 days, I'm gonna have my baby. I just was not mentally prepared for that. And at that 3 days, I would be exactly 38 weeks. And I was still planning to work that week upcoming at work. I wasn't planning on taking maternity leave until after that week was done. Same with Ty. So that Friday, we both had to send frantic messages to our bosses, letting them know, hey, we actually need to start maternity leave 1 week early. There was just so much information hitting me at once. I felt so overwhelmed that day. And also then everyone was just asking me how everything went, and I like couldn't even process anything. I just like was starting to blank out. And the OB was like, okay, yep, we'll see you Sunday for pre-op stuff, and then you'll come in Monday morning for the C-section to get your baby out. She explained to me at that point that because the baby hadn't grown, they're really at the point where, you know what, it's actually probably better for the baby to grow outside the womb, because my placenta likely was no longer giving the nutrients needed for the baby to grow. At that point, their guesstimated weight of the baby was 5 pounds, and nearing in at 38 weeks, there's not a lot of likelihood that the baby would continue to grow, nor would she flip on her own anyways. Oh man, so I remember on Saturday, I was spiraling and just like reading everything, trying to prepare. Like, you know, we thought we had still 2 weeks to really prepare everything and buckle down at home, but there were so many things we just kind of had to sort out. And then Sunday, I felt a little bit more calm because I was reading a lot of positive stories about scheduled C-sections, and how honestly like 90% of the stories that I read were extremely positive experiences. So I was starting to feel a lot better about it. And the way that I saw it was like, either way, giving birth vaginally or giving birth through a C-section, there's going to be some amount of pain. It's just choosing, you know, how, where, and when you want to endure that pain. Like, there was no method that was better than the other. They're just two different types of delivery methods. Both would be painful one way or another. Both would have pros and cons. I was open to vaginal birth or C-section when I had the option for both, in a sense. But then feeling like one option was taken away from me, I definitely struggled with that a little bit. But I did read a lot of positive stories that brought me a lot of ease. So then by Sunday, I was feeling actually very relaxed, very calm. We went to the pre-op appointment. I was allowed to ask all the questions in the world. The nurse was so sweet and walked me through like the entire experience and what to expect. And I was feeling a lot better about it. I remember going in Monday morning, driving to the hospital. I felt very relaxed. Like, it was kind of nice that you knew how everything was gonna happen. Like, there was no frantic, like, oh my god, we go to the hospital, or like laboring beforehand. It was just like, hey, like, we're prepped, like, we're prepared. I ate a snack. We knew we had everything that we needed, got into the car. I was like going to an appointment that we like scheduled. And I was like, oh, like, I know exactly what's gonna happen over the next few hours. And once I'm on the operating table, within 40 minutes, I'm gonna have this baby on me. Whereas like if you go into labor, you don't know how long you're gonna labor for or how painful it's going to be. Right before going into the operating room, I remember starting to panic a little bit. I was like, holy fuck, I think I'm having a panic attack. All the doctors and nurses that would be in the room with me came and met with me a few minutes before, and they talked me through it, so I felt a lot more at ease. It was like kind of really chill actually. Like, I walked to the operating room, I sat back, the spinal tap didn't hurt, I chilled. That they had Ty come in. Ty was like with me the whole time, just like we were chatting as they were like cutting me up. I didn't feel anything when they were cutting me up. I looked at the clock, and from the time that they started the procedure, they had the baby out less than 15 minutes later. And then I remember once I actually got rolled out, I looked at the clock again, it was like 40 minutes or something like that, and it went by so quickly. Because once you see the baby, Ty gets to hold the baby, and like we're just there soaking that moment in, and the rest really felt so fast as they were, you know, stitching me back up. And then we spent 2 nights, yes, 2 nights at the hospital. The first day or two was definitely very rough. I remember thinking to myself, I don't know if I could ever do that again. But then looking back, I'm like, oh, it was only like really one day that I felt like that. And the rest of the time from when I left the hospital until now, it's been manageable. Within like the next day I was able to walk around my house and like put some stuff away and whatnot, do like really light work. I love that I didn't have to get stitched up in my vagina. I know a lot of people tear when they give birth vaginally, so that was a plus, is like my vagina is very much still intact. My C-section cut is like so low. I would never show anyways. I mean, if it was showing, I'd be very concerned because like I would never be wearing anything that low. I know a lot of people say that the C-section recovery is harder than a vaginal delivery, but I don't know. I've heard some people's stories about their vaginal recovery being very, very painful and taking quite a long time. And I'm a week and a few days in and I feel pretty good. Like actually today, I think I'm gonna go take a walk outside for the very first time because I finally feel like good enough to do that. Last week, I honestly felt like I could work out, but obviously I didn't want to strain myself, but I felt like I could do an upper body workout if I wanted to. But I am gonna wait the 6 weeks for my body internally to totally heal as well, to make sure I'm not messing anything up. So that is my delivery story. I wanted to share how at that last minute I had so many twists and turns and a lot of unexpected things happen and things going in ways that I never even knew could go, but it ended up being a relatively positive experience. And I would definitely do a C-section again if I had to in the future. If you guys have any questions about anything in this video, Breech, ECVs, scheduled C-sections, ask them below or connect me on Instagram. We actually also started a separate Instagram for more mommy, family, baby related stuff that Ty and I will be posting on, because I still do love my fashion and beauty things and I don't want to bombard that audience with mommyhood things. Anyways, I am now 5 minutes late to wake up my baby for a feeding, so I gotta get going. Talk to you guys later. Bye.